Aloha, namaste. This is Alexis with Radha Home Yoga, and I'm here to talk about our Great Conjunction. So we have on December 21st, which is the winter solstice here in the Northern Hemisphere. It's going to be the summer solstice in the Southern Hemisphere. We have the planets Jupiter and Saturn meeting in the Great Conjunction. What is so great about this conjunction? Why is it so magical? Why are so many people talking about it? Well, from a purely astronomical perspective, this is going to be the closest these two bodies are in 800 years. They only even come together once every 20 years. And they are the largest planets in the solar system. And so when you can see them, they're visible with the naked eye, which is why in the Vedic text, they were able to see them and observe them and use them. We just have a little bit of a rainstorm going on right now, so hopefully this will still film okay. But when they come together that close, it can look as though they are one planet and to some one star. Many people are referring to it as the Great Star. And that is why, because it's going to be very bright and very beautiful. And it already is. If you've been watching the last week or so, you can see them coming closer and closer together in the sky. So it's sort of exciting. You get to watch them come. And then if you're lucky enough, you can see them in that moment of joining. So why might you not be lucky? Well, here in Hawaii, for example, the exact moment that they're going to be the highest, the closest is at 8:20 a.m. on Monday morning. So obviously the sun's going to be up. We're not going to really be able to see them here at that exact time. So we're going to have to see them at the sunset before on that Sunday night or on Monday night after they've kind of already passed and Jupiter's already overtaken Saturn and become farther away. So places will have reasons like that. Another reason is rainstorms, clouds. You might not be able to see them if you don't have a good horizon view, if you have a lot of trees or anything like that. You might want to go somewhere where you can actually see and have a good clear vision. But most people will be able to see this happening, at least to some degree. They might not get to catch the exact moment of closestness, but they will be able to catch some element of that. And also we have the solstice. And the solstice happens Monday also, but here in Hawaii, it's actually at 12:02 a.m. on Monday, the 21st. So it's pretty much Sunday night. That's the time when the sun's going to change its course in the sky. And we have the darkest day of the year. And from there, we expand towards light. So the solstice is very important from a perspective of our power, our sun, literally growing as as we move towards the summer solstice. So we're, as you might have been noticing, getting darker and darker and darker every single night, and it's getting the sunset is changing where it's setting, and it's this time of year when we feel like everything's sort of coming to a point. Now, solstice is a few days before Christmas, and I've talked about this in the past. I'm not going to talk about it too much right now, but personally, the way that I choose to view Christmas is that it is really something that was extrapolated from the solstice. So not necessarily the day that Jesus was born, because that would have been very hard to have that date pinpointed on a Gregorian calendar, because the Gregorian calendar was later made and isn't really related. But the sun is born on the solstice, right? You have to excuse me, I have a little bit of a froggy throat. The sun is born new on this solstice. So it is the sun, a sun, and of God. That's really up to your interpretation. But the birth of Jesus being the Son of God is something that Christians later came in and put at that date. And you can see that with many other pagan, traditionally pagan holidays. that were celebrated based on the seasons and based on timing, there was then an overlay of a Christian holiday that had to do with Jesus at that time. So, oh, pardon me. Just as I get talking, it gets froggy. Well, one of the things that we're learning in this time of this great conjunction and this solstice, as we move to dark, to the darkest day, and as our planet of wisdom, Jupiter, is joined our planet of silence and stillness and time and even death, we are learning to listen, to be quiet. Actually, as I film this, it's the nakshatra Shravana, which is oh my, well, I just took a spoon of honey, so hopefully that will help. I apologize. It's been sort of working through something and it's apparently still there. The nakshatra Shravana is to listen. It is ruled by Vishnu, the all-pervading presence of the universe. And it is where we are able to still ourselves enough to hear not just the surface dialogue, not just the sounds that are loud and abrasive and in our face, but that which is beneath the surface. So the moon is actually just passed over this Saturn-Jupiter conjunction, albeit not at its closest point. And now it's in Shravana while I film this. Probably not by the time you get to watch it, but nonetheless, that energy is there. The great conjunction is happening at a part in the sky that is sort of between two nakshatras. There are varying interpretations. It is not a traditional nakshatra. It's not one of the traditional 27 nakshatras. Some astrologers will say this is happening in Uttarashada because that is technically the part of Capricorn that this is happening in, which is the beginning part of Capricorn, the first 10 degrees of Capricorn, and the first pada of it's actually in Sagittarius, of Uttarashada. Then Shravana begins. Well, there's actually a 28th nakshatra, and it's sort of hidden or mystical. It's not often used. It's not used in people's birth charts. For example, if your moon is in this placement, it's rarely commented upon. It's more used for muhurta or for timing, event timing. Well, this is an event. This is a timing. This is an event where Jupiter and Saturn come together. And they're coming together in this degrees of Capricorn. And I'm actually going to share my chart with you so you can see. Yeah, so we have our great conjunction here at 8:20 a.m. in Hawaii. And you can see happening right here at 6 degrees Uttarashada is what's come up on the software. Because again, if we were doing someone's chart, that would be what we would say. That would be the nakshatra that their moon would be in, or whatever planet we'd be talking about. But in the case of an event, we do sometimes use this 28th nakshatra, and it's in the story, in the mythology, it's the lone sun. So Daksha has these 27 daughters, and they're the wives of the moon, and they're the 27 stars. I actually spoke about them very recently because we had our full moon and our solar eclipse, our full moon lunar eclipse and our new moon solar eclipse in Rohini and Jaistha, who are sort of adversaries of the sisters. Well, Abhijit is the sun. He's the only sun. And it is the star Veda, which is the brightest star in the constellation of Lyra. My goodness, I'm super sorry. I wasn't having this happen before, but of course I wasn't talking to myself. I did teach a class this morning and I was speaking fine, so it's just special for you guys. But this star is one that is either said to take up that final part, that final pada of Uttarashada, which is 5 to 10 degrees in Capricorn, and then into Shravana, right? So then it would be the last part of Uttarashada, that 1/4, and then up to 1/15 of Shravana. So that's what a lot of astrologers say. I would say maybe, I don't know the percentage who say one thing or another, but that's what many say, is that it cuts off there and there's actually a little space there. Other astrologers say that it actually is in the background and sort of overlaid or underlaid behind the other two stars, that Uttarashada and Shravana still hold their place in the sky. And this is something that's sort of happening in the background on a deeper, more spiritual, mystical level. Either way, this is a very potent star. It's a star that is about victory, and it's used in Muhurta because it implies auspicious timing. And this is obviously a very auspicious event, that these two huge planets are coming together in such close proximity. And again, it hasn't really been this close in proximity since, I think, 1623. And visibly, it's been since like 1223 that it's been this close. I think in 1623 they were close, but the sun was also right there. So you wouldn't have been able to see them at that time. So this nakshatra, this Abhijit, it shows success in endeavors, new endeavors, especially traveling or healing. It can do with politics and war. It has to do with starting something new, like starting a new business. And it is the victorious star. That's how it's represented. One author I read also refers to it as the eye of the zodiac, and it's literally indicating the direction in which the sun is processing in the universe. So we can see that it's also ruled, by the way, by Vishnu and Brahma. Brahma's the creator, and Vishnu's that sustaining, all-pervading presence of the universe. So this is a placement of quite a lot of auspicious energy. There's a lot to hold here. And to have these two planets coming together here is very powerful. As I said in my last video, one of the things that's really interesting about this Saturn-Jupiter conjunction is that for all the mystical energy and all the mystical things that might be surrounding it, it's actually in a very cold placement in Saturn. Overall, Saturn and Jupiter in Capricorn are bringing up our less religious side. They are having us detach from the dogma, from the tenets of religion, from the things that make us cling to religion, and offering us peace in a different way. So if you have a lot of practices and maybe a lot of beliefs that you're attached to, but you don't have a depth of connection with your own soul, this could be very challenging for you. This idea that we want this to be, you know, the Star of Bethlehem, or this something, we want it to be something really profound. I've seen many different people speak about the different things that they want this to be. Western astrologers speak of it as the beckoning of the age of Aquarius. And the reason they do that is because in Western astrology, it actually happens at the beginning of Aquarius. It happens at 0 degrees Aquarius. But the problem with that is that Western astrology is calculated off. So it's not actually what's happening in the sky. So if you are, you know, getting out your telescope or your binoculars or really trying to get a clear vision of this great event, you will note that it's not in Aquarius. So it's not, it's sort of a weird, it's one of those things where it's like people want to believe things so much and they have all these attachments to these different things, but when something is calculated at its foundation in a faulty way, your attachment to what you believe or what you resonate with it doesn't matter if it's it doesn't matter if you resonate with it. It's founded on something that's faulty to begin with. So this is unfortunately not the ushering in of the age of Aquarius. I know that is disappointing to some people, but probably not people who watch my videos. It is, however, this conjunction that's happening in this very powerful place in the sky. So we have a lot of hard work in Saturn, right? In Capricorn, a lot of awareness of how much time we have left, of our imminent death, the fact that we're definitely going to die, no matter what. The fact that everyone around us will ultimately die. That deep peace that comes when we detach from all of that stuff and just accept what is. The planet Jupiter here is the problematic one because it's not in its own sign. Saturn's in his own sign, Jupiter's not. Jupiter is in his sign of debilitation. So there's a lot of constrictive energy where we might not be able to expand our beliefs. We might not be able to see beyond the limitations. We might feel a lack of beliefs at all, which is really often what happens when you see Jupiter and Saturn together. There's a tendency towards atheism. There's a tendency towards not believing in God at all and having no connection to spirit, which can be very, very, very depressing. When you have no hope or nothing that you really believe in, it's hard to be inspired to do something that makes you feel good. It's hard to be inspired to even live sometimes. So it's a depressing quality, actually. And I think that the bright light of this is that they're coming together in this moment, in this time, in a place that has two qualities to it. One, it's in Uttarashada, which is the nakshatra of victory. It's literally the later victory. So the early victory is that you sort of planted whatever you've planted in your life. You've chosen to, plant these values, and excuse me. You've, been planting whatever you've been planting in your life. You've been tending to it. You've been feeding it. And now in Uttarashada, you have the later victory. You have the capacity to harvest maybe some of what you've done. It's a time when you can actually, I'm using metaphorically planting and gardening because the nakshatras that lead up to it sort of lead to that, because it's Mula, you're uprooting. And then Purvashada is where the early victory occurs. And then Uttarashada, and that's entirely in Sagittarius. Uttarashada begins in Sagittarius, moves into Capricorn, and it has this quality of the victory of the hard work you've put in. But there's still more work to be done. And then we have this sort of mystical overlay, or perhaps, gap period of this star of Abhijit, that is where perhaps something magical can happen, something beyond just the hard work and the hard effort, because we have to put that in. If we care to have magical moments, if we care to have luck, I don't know who said it, but like luck is when hard work meets good timing or something like that. So these magical moments we have actually come from very real work that we've done, right? We put in a certain amount of effort in our life. We clear karma, we meditate, we plant good seeds of intention, we take in good teachings, and we practice those teachings, right? We don't just leave them on the shelf, buy a bunch of different workshops and books and things, and then kind of leave them to be. We take them in, we use them, we practice them, we integrate them into our lives, and then these moments come where when everything can converge and can happen. And so we have an opportunity here, and it really depends on your chart in many ways, on what your relationship to Jupiter and Saturn is, on what house this is happening for you in, what houses these planets rule for you, like what does Saturn rule for you, what does Jupiter rule for you. All of these things are going to come together to create something for you in that moment. And it's likely that it either feels sort of cataclysmic and harsh, just as the eclipse this past week might have, or it's possible that it feels really opening and like, wow, I've just, gotten a glimpse into what I want, where I want to go from here. what I want to commit to, because Saturn has a lot to do with our commitments and what we're choosing to spend our time on. So what are we choosing to spend our energy doing? Because that's what Saturn's telling us. And in Capricorn, we have a tendency to think of the long-term vision. Like we want to spend our time doing things that are going to get us to our ends. And our ends are survival, for sure. But with Jupiter there, although Jupiter is in poor dignity, there is still going to be a quality of wanting, where are we going on a more like philosophical level? There's going to be a philosophical element with Jupiter there. Jupiter's the brighter of the two. So when we're watching this phenomenon in the sky, we'll see Jupiter first. Jupiter's also the one that's going to be overtaking Saturn, right? It's going to be the one going faster. So it has a power here, but it's the power of a debilitated planet. It's the power of a planet that's in poor dignity, but it's joined the ruler of the sun. So there is wisdom to be had. There is even a long-term vision of our philosophy that can be had here. But it requires that we're able to lose a lot of the baggage. That's what Saturn is a lot about. Getting rid of all the baggage, just like an old person does. It's like you can't cling to all your possessions when you're really old. Once you die, none of those things are going with you. So they'll either just rot away in a place, or you start giving them to people, or you have them plan to go to different people. You start to realize the lack of value that those possessions have. Things that carry memories for you are really carrying your relationships and the people that you knew and things like that. But stuff, just having stuff for no reason really doesn't make sense, especially the older you get. And as we are all sort of in this aged period with Saturn and Capricorn, we might all be feeling a little old, all of us feeling a little crickety. It certainly can be harsh on our health and well-being and our bones and our, whether or not you're moving at your best, because there's a quality of air with Saturn that is very dry. So you might not be as mobile as you usually are. You might have something wrong with your knees or something wrong with your joints, and just in general have more of a trouble with your body. All of these things force us to sort of still ourselves, to lose the attachment to being, engaged in the world and being social, to lose the attachment of having opinions and beliefs and ideals that everyone agrees with, or that even feel good in that sort of, gathering sense where we're all sitting together and doing something collectively. It starts to bring our beliefs and ideals into that lonely place, that place of solitude. And generally speaking, Jupiter doesn't love that. It's the planet where we want to expand and be more generous and more growth and share our beliefs and opinions and ideals. But at this juncture, what's being asked of us is to talk less, listen more, and not listen to all the other voices out there, not listen to all the other noise out there, but to actually sit with ourselves and listen in great solitude. So can we meditate? Can you find a mountain or a hill on which to meditate in this, not just on that day, in that moment, but leading up to it and beyond in this period of time, because the two planets are coming together and they'll still be very close together afterwards. It's the waning of the sun, right? It's the point where the sun's getting the darkest. So we're already being asked of that seasonally this time of year anyway. We did just pass through the new moon, so we are on a waxing moon, but we still have this element of winter here, especially in the northern hemisphere. Of course, in the southern hemisphere, it's a little bit different. It's more of an expanding quality. But this energy for us is to sit in ourselves, to sit in our own space, our own time, even if you're in the southern hemisphere, even if you have your sun growing, getting to its max point, then afterwards it will be dying. But Saturn, Jupiter joined is a lot about us learning to sit in that space of peace and solitude. And if we look to the idea of the warrior, or the idea of being victorious, all great warriors have to sit with themselves. They don't stay up all night every night gabbing. The brilliant ones, the ones who have made the difference, who have stood out. Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita is the foremost of the warriors. And he has, throughout the Mahabharata, he has stories where he walks out on his own. He takes a solo journey up the mountain to get the great bow from Shiva. He has to face his fears on his own. Well, each of us has to do that also. We each, in order to be this great warrior, have to sit alone. Even Abhijit is the nakshatra that is the lone sun, the only sun, by himself. Rarely even talked about. Maybe in the background, maybe squeezed between two of his sisters, but not the foremost, not at the front stage. So we need to sit back, settle in, and take some time with ourselves to really establish that connection, that truth that we each have, that truth that we each know when we do take the time to really reestablish connection. When we're not listening to all the other voices, when we're not on our phones or on the internet and taking in all this article, or this article said this, or this thing said this, or this person said this, it's all a lot. It's a lot of noise. So if there's anything that you can take out of this, which is hopefully more than just one thing, it would be to turn off your phone, cancel your social engagements and spend some time with yourself, or with just another quiet soul, or, not necessarily going to a party, a grand conjunction party. I'm sure I'm sure those exist. I've seen it all at this point. So I have no doubt that there's a grand conjunction party somewhere. Try not to go to it, try to sit with yourself and be that lone soldier, that lone warrior, that lone person, and really reflect on what you believe, not specific details of what you believe about what's going on right now, but what you actually believe. What are your true beliefs? What is your true core essence, relationship to spirit? How does that roll? And how do you function in life from that place? Is it fearful? Is it all about fear? Because if it's all about fear, then everything you do is going to come from that place. If it's not grounded and rooted in an acceptance of time rather than a running from time, then you will always spend your life in that place. You'll always spend your life with pressure on your head telling you what you need to do next and an end line that you're running towards. And the secret of Saturn, and the secret of this conjunction, is to dissolve the pressure and the end line. Lose them. There'll never be an end. The end that's coming to you when you die, you don't know when it will be. Or maybe you're very prophetic and you do know when it will be, but it's not something you're running towards or thinking about. The pressure that's on your head, it'll always be there. There'll always be something else to sit on you. There'll always be something else to tell you, you need to do more, you need to do more. You'll never have done enough. There'll always be more dishes to do. There'll always be more food to make. Whatever it is, there'll always be more. There'll always be more work. So allow it. Allow that acceptance that there'll always be work. And we should do work every day. There's something we have to do to take care of ourselves every single day. But in this moment, do whatever you can, do what you need to do for today, but lose the pressure, lose the idea that there's this end line and this pressure right there on you, and just do. And the more we do that, the more joyful we can be. There's actually a concept in a book, it's one of my favorite books as a mother, called the continuum concept. And she talks about how this tribe that she's with, I think they're in Brazil, and this is in the 60s that she's with them, how they don't have a word for work and a word for play. They just do. They just do things. They're not separating like, this is when I'm having fun and this is when I'm working, and working is not having fun. It's all one. They enjoy doing what they need to do to feed themselves and to, build their homes and to take care of their families and everything they need to do. They don't have this separate world. Well, we have a very separated world now. Most people go to a store and buy their groceries, and maybe they even eat out at a restaurant, or I guess these days order in from a restaurant. They have very little relationship with their food, and then their daily life involves working in some other capacity to something else. So the disconnect is big. We do have our job and our life, but both feel kind of like work. And then play is this tiny little slice of time where you do something else. But what if we could integrate that? What if we could make it all be one, where we enjoy what we do for work, and we enjoy even the process of going to the grocery store or whatever it is that we do in order to take care of our needs and our family, and we find more joy. And it's odd to talk about finding more joy in a Saturn-Jupiter conjunction in Capricorn, because it's a sign that lacks joy, but it is a joy that comes from losing all the attachments. It's like a true joy. It's not just joy in the fun and the festive part. And with Rahu, with the North Node in Taurus right now, we might be having a lot of that feeling of wanting joy, chasing joy that comes from pleasure and from feeling good and from beauty. But the joy in Saturn comes from not expecting anything, not needing anything, not wanting anything more, having everything be enough. And the other thing I'll leave you with is that in looking at this nakshatra, this star Abhijit, and a lovely friend of mine who is also a Jyotishi, Einar, brought a lot of research to me on this particular star. And I was able to get through some of it, and some of it I used in other ways, but I appreciate you, Einar. And one of the quotes that came up, and I think it said that it was in the Gita, but I wasn't able to actually find it in the Gita, but I did find from the Srimad Bhagavatam that among the nakshatras, Krishna is Abhijit. He is the foremost of everything. If you've read in the Bhagavad Gita, he says, I am the, of the months, I am Mrigashira, I am the best, the spring of the, what is it? Of the, I actually had the Bhagavad Gita right here in a minute, hang on. Among the Vrishnis, I am Krishna. So of all the different emanations of Vishnu, he is Krishna. Among the Pandavas, he is Arjuna. Pandavas were all the brothers, and Arjuna was the best warrior of them, the best archer. Among the sages, I am Vyasa. Among the poets, Ushanas. Among the hymns of the Samaveda, I am the Brihat. Among the poetic meters, the Gayatri. Among the months, I am Margashira, first of the year. Among the seasons, I am spring that brings forth flowers. So he is, there is no end, there is no beginning, right? He is everything. He is the greatest and biggest and foremost and most important. And that is what he's saying of himself with Abhijit, the nakshatra, is that, and again, I didn't actually find it in the Bhagavad Gita. I found that he is the moon as the version of that. And it's possible it's just not the translations that I have, but I looked through several. But in the Srimad Bhagavatam, he states that. And it is a quality of that all-pervasiveness, that he is everything. He is the end, he is the beginning, he is the start, he is the finish, and he is the most. Whatever the most is sort of the culmination of everything else that gets there. So it's all the nakshatras, and then Abhijit is like the one that is hiding in the back, but it's also the representation of all of it coming to its greatest point. So that's how I take that. And I think in this time when there's a sense of almost hopelessness sometimes, and a void of our connection to spirit and our connection to God, it's important to not latch on to false ideas or false hope, because it actually gives us more of a depression. It makes us feel more let down when that big thing doesn't happen the way that we wanted it to. Which is why I practice Vedic astrology, because I grew up around a lot of Western astrology, and I grew up with a lot of magical ways of doing things, and I think there's value in all of it. But the foundation, the calculations, the way things are made, the numbers of the numerology, and all these different portals and things you hear about are founded on faulty calculations. With the Western system, it's literally just there's a miscalculation. There's a way in which they're calculating the zodiac where the planets aren't actually in that zodiac sign. I mean, the zodiac is star constellations, and they're not actually there anymore. So that's why I don't subscribe to that. With things like the number portals, 12 12, 11 11, 8 8, it's nice to think of that, and I think there is magic in numbers. But when you're using numbers that are based on the Gregorian calendar, you're using numbers that aren't really based on anything. So that's a reason why I don't jump into those portals either. But when there is one, when there's an actual moment, an eclipse we just had, and now this great conjunction, it's a time when we really need to harness our energy. And rather than looking at it like a time to party or a time to really, make all these crazy assertions, it's really important to understand what it is and what it's bringing to you. If you haven't already, I have several free reports that are right now going out to you as soon as you sign up for my newsletter at www.radhahomeyoga.com. There'll be a link in the comments that that you can get to find out where this eclipse happened for you in your chart, what houses. You can find out what house Jupiter and Saturn are in right now for you, what sign Capricorn is, what house that is for you. Very important, what part of your life it's happening in. And then it also will tell you what houses Jupiter rules. I used to have reports because Saturn moved into Capricorn in January. I had a report going out with Saturn for all 12 signs as well. And that's not sending out at the moment. But if you're not already on the email list and you haven't gotten that yet, and you'd like that one too, you could always reach out to me and I'd be happy to send you a copy of it. But basically just knowing where this conjunction is happening in your chart makes it so much more profound for you. Just like knowing the exact time it's happening is profound, because then you can practice your prayer up until that point, up until that juncture. So many times people celebrate things, even just full moons and new moons, after the fact, after they've already happened, because all they know is, oh, it's on this day, it's on Monday, but they don't know the time. And so they lose some of the potency. The more dialed in you are to the exact timing, the more dialed in you are to the exact information, the more likely you are to create a portal for yourself. In prayers, in Vedic prayers, they actually call in the moment. Like, I'm here at this time during this day of this month, in this moon phase, in this moment, right here now, please come bring, please connect to me. It's like ET phone home, this is my call to the universe and to this energy that I'm praying to. And this is where I'm located here on Earth, using these astrological timings. That doesn't work as well with Western astrology because it's not placed well. But that's the essence of this, is to find truth, not a bunch more lies, because there are enough of those already. So I hope that this helps you find your truth, and I hope that it helps you find a good way to bring in your great conjunction, and is helpful. If you like this, you can like it, comment, share, always helps me out. I do these videos for free to offer out to the community, and so more people can be aware of me and what I'm doing. If you have not signed up for that newsletter yet, just go straight to the website. Again, it's www.radha, home, HOME, yoga.com. And if you go to the forecast page, you'll see all the previous forecasts, as well as this one will be uploaded soon. And you can sign up there. Have a beautiful, blessed solstice, whether you're in the northern hemisphere or the southern, and have a very blessed, great conjunction as well. Namaste.